And please welcome this evening's guest moderator, Tim Washer, and tonight's guest, Tony Hale.
All right, thank
Hello.
you.
Hi, all. Thank you for... Oh, I already have water. Thank you for coming out on this rainy Friday night. I know there's much fancier New York dance clubs out there that you'd rather be at on a Friday night. But thank you.
Would you dance? You want to dance some more for us? We're going to take requests. We'll do 2 questions, and then Tony's going to dance. So just let us know your favorite show tunes. Write those down and pass them up front.
What if this entire night I just danced? Wouldn't that be amazing?
I think, are we going to see a lot of you dancing in season 3?
No, I wish. Actually, in that first episode, because that was a wedding I was at in that first episode, and Gary does a little dancing. Yeah. But that was, obviously I'm at a wedding, and Selena is calling me, and you can just see his codependency that he can't even give scripture without breaking away to her.
So, codependency, that seems to be a recurring theme in a lot of your characters, would you say? Or certainly
Yes.
awkwardness.
Yes.
And I don't think we've seen any characters like the ones you play on TV or literature.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Buster, it's Buster and Gary just, he pretty much, for those of you who haven't watched Veep, Julie Louis-Dreyfus plays the vice president, and I kind of play her what's called a body man, which means I carry around a very large bag of everything that she needs, and I pretty much worship the ground she walks on. And in my eyes, I would just rather be married to her, and she probably doesn't even know my last name. So it's a very codependent relationship, and that tends to be a theme in a lot of my work.
So how do you get into character? And I guess more importantly, how do you get out of character when it's time to leave?
How do I... how do I get into character? Well, let me think. Kind of like how do I form characters and stuff like that?
Yeah, the process. And if you get 1 pass tonight on a question, so choose wisely.
Thank you. Crap. Characters that I've done. I will say 2 huge comic inspirations for me were, we're just diving in right now, aren't we?
Yeah, let's get into it.
2 huge comic inspirations for me are Tim Conway and Bob Newhart. And for those of you guys who are in my age, you'll know them. But one thing that I always loved about those 2 guys is they were given these crazy circumstances, like Tim Conway on the Carol Burnett Show, and I felt like they never pushed the comedy. They just kind of trusted the circumstances that they were in. So if, like for instance, in Veep and just kind of the chaos of that environment, but Tim Conway had all these nutty characters, but they knew their circumstances were wild, and therefore if they just sat in that tension and just kind of lived there honestly, it was hilarious. So they never felt the need to push. So I looked at these characters that I've done, and the other character, on Arrested, I played Buster on Arrested, and you know, my hand's bitten off by a seal, and I'm dating Liza Minnelli. And on this show, it's like I've been with Selena Meyer for 15 years. I'm in a job, actually, as Gary. I started in my 20s, and typically people in this body man job, they're in it for 2 years, and they serve their politician, do everything, and then they move on to other stuff. I have continued on into my 40s, just because I don't know any other identity outside of Selena Meyer. And it's like they're crazy circumstances. And if you just kind of live in that awkward tension and just, you don't have to do anything. The writers just give you these crazy circumstances, and that to me is kind of fun and just funny.
All right, well, speaking of staying where you are, there's an opportunity in season 3 where a promotion may come up for you. Can we run that? There's a clip. Can we run the clip where there's a...
Oh, is this the one... when I'm on my bed?
The POTUS body man clip? Yeah, at the bed.
So sad. The thing is that like this next season, well, first of all, she's on the campaign trail. So she's on the campaign trail she wants to become president. And the fact that she's on the campaign trail and people are actually giving her money for her campaign, it's astonishing because they're idiots. So we meet a lot of idiots this next season. But he kind of wants to branch out and do other stuff, and it's not necessarily that he wants to do it, but he wants to impress her, because that's all he lives for, is to impress her. So he tries to exercise some different muscles, some different roles, and obviously he fails miserably, and it's a disaster because he really only knows how to give her just lipstick. But he tries, and it's a disaster.
We're not going to see another Leviathan replacement in season 3.
Oh my gosh. So in season 2, he carries around this bag, and he calls it his Leviathan. If anybody else calls it a bag, he gets pissed off. But she gave him a different bag as a gift, and he flipped out because his bag is really the only control he has in his life. And he has probably sewn like 60 different pockets in the bag they're probably texture coded and color coded. And it's just it's like Linus's blanket. It's his security blanket. And then when she gave him a new bag, he just flipped out because his foundations were crumbling beneath him. It was a sad day.
All right, so let's back up to the moment in your life when you first realized, hey, I want to work in comedy.
Okay. Okay. So just kind of growing up, you mean?
Yeah, specifically when you were 2.
Oh, yeah. So when I was in 7th grade, we moved to Tallahassee. My parents moved us to Tallahassee, Florida. And I was living in the South, and I was not a kid who was really into sports. Because football is pretty much a religion down south, and I wasn't into sports. And so my parents thankfully signed me up for this acting program called the Young Actors Theater in Tallahassee, Florida. And I can honestly say that made such a massive difference in my life. It was a place where I kind of began to discover what I like to do, who I was. And that has just I'm so thankful for that theater group. And then after that, I studied journalism in college because I didn't think I could make a living off acting. And then after college is when I decided to move to New York. And because I really thought, I really do love this acting thing. I love making people laugh. And I moved to New York in 1995 and was here for about 8 or 9 years, just kind of trying it out. And doing commercials and off-Broadway. My first show in New York was I did Taming of the Shrew at Shakespeare in the parking lot. We performed Shakespeare in a parking lot in the East Village. And it was my first taste of New Yorkers because you would see, like we would be performing Shakespeare and getting all into it. And these New Yorkers would sit down kind of interested, and you'd see their face go from this to, and then they just walk off. And I was like, oh, God, just keep going, keep going, keep going. But it was, that was my first theater experience. And then I started doing commercials and all this other stuff. And it was, and then we moved out to LA in 2003. And because I got the audition for Arrested Development in 2003. And my wife and I were engaged. And 10 days before we got married, the show got picked up and we moved out to Los Angeles.
That was 10 days before you got married?
Yeah.
But you went ahead, you got married.
Yes, we did.
The stress didn't tear that up.
Yes.
You don't feel that way anymore after you have an Emmy, right?
Yeah. No, I'm completely fixed. That was a crazy night. It was. I remember when my wife and I got the call that I was on the list, the nomination list, and we just flipped out. We flipped out, jumping up and down in our bedroom, and to us, that was enough. Like we were just even to be on a list with all those guys. And so we kind of went into the Emmys like, you know what, let's check our expectations. Let's just have a good time. And then when I heard my name called, I'm surprised I could even put a sentence together because it was so overwhelming. I remember I got home at 1 o'clock in the morning and I didn't fall asleep until 5:30. And I was just like this in my bed. It was so overwhelming. It was a great night.
Was that because you were sleeping on the Emmy?
Yes, exactly.
You still sleep with it?
I was cuddling with the Emmy.
And your wife has one too.
Yes, my wife back there has she has an Emmy for her. She did makeup in New York. She's a makeup artist and a very talented lady. She worked on Saturday Night Live, and then she did an episode of All My Children, and it was a Halloween episode, and she was doing special effects makeup, and that's what she got her Emmy for.
Do you have yours with you?
She
Martel?
does. It's
She's
in her purse.
Okay. Hey, can we go to the next clip? Can we show the bathroom one? That's my favorite.
I will say, in Gary's world, the fact that she's running for president is like, yeah. I mean, obviously, she should be doing that the entire time, because in his eyes, she's pretty much the Messiah.
So what? Look, in this, back to the business end of things. Tell us about the rejection. Would you say it's a rejection free? Let's go from Emmy to rejection.
I do. One thing is one of the things I love talking to students, like going to colleges and talking to them, because I think students a lot of times don't get a picture of kind of what it's like in the business. They hear about the craft of acting, but they don't kind of hear about the reality. And you really are signing up for you're signing up for a lot of rejection. And because in our world, typically in life, people will go on interviews for 2 or 3 months and then they'll have a job for like 2 or 3 years. In the acting world, you're on a job interview for 2 or 3 years and you're lucky if you get a gig for 2 or 3 months. So you're really signing up for just a constant job interview, and it's a weird, now I get kind of used to it just because you know that it's not really about your acting, but it's just you're not the right type or whatever. But I encourage people to just get a strong support system in this business, because you just need, like when I was in New York for those 8 or 9 years, just having people say, hey, keep going, just keep walking, and just having that support around you is very, very, very important, very important.
Now, when your daughter comes to you and says, Dad, I want to get in the acting business, what would you tell her?
Start crying.
Yes.
I'm not one of those parents that are just like, no, don't do that. I mean, it makes me nervous because I adore her and I don't want her to experience that much rejection. But like, if it's something that she really wants to do and loves to do, and I hope that we will have raised her with a lot of different choices, that she can just choose whatever she wants. But yeah, I mean, if I feel like, I don't know, if she really wants to do it, then I have to encourage it. It just makes me nervous even thinking about it. I'm like, oh, sweet Jesus.
You want to go to questions? Oh,
sure.
Is the timing right? Okay, great.
Yeah.
Hi. I'm a big fan of Veep, and
sure.
I'd like to know what your favorite Jonah insult is.
Oh my gosh. There's so many. What's great about the Jonah insults is all of the writers on the show are all British. And it's their perspective on American politics. And these Brits, man, they have got a wealth of insults. Like, they just come up with these fantastic insults. What is one? I loved, there's one coming up about he calls him scaffolding, horrible scaffolding. I don't know if I can say this on camera because they're pretty crude. There's one that's Jolly Green, that one. yeah, that was a pretty good one. There's plenty. And that's also what he says. Like, he just has the best lines. And the great thing about Tim, who plays Jonah, he is completely opposite from Jonah. Like, he is the nicest, sweetest man, and the lines that he has to say are so horrid and awful. But he's great.
Hi. Of all your co-stars on Veep, who has the best sense of humor off screen?
Good one. Who has the best sense of humor off screen? Matt Walsh, who plays Mike, he was one of the founders of Upright Citizens Brigade. And just his improv alone, what he comes up with, I think is so brilliant. And he amazes me. I will say they all are so funny, and I'm the person that breaks the most. So I can't keep it together on set. It's incredibly unprofessional. I should go back to acting school. If you ever see me kind of digging into my bag or turning my back, it's because I'm laughing and I'm ruining the shot. And Julia has said that she wants to start a drinking game for the amount of times that you think that I'm going to start laughing on screen. That's sad.
How are you? My name is Byron Thomas.
Hey, Byron, how are you?
Good. My question is, it pertains to the insults. What are the chances?
This is a theme.
What are the chances that Malcolm Tucker will ever make an appearance on Veep?
Oh my gosh, wouldn't that be great? Malcolm Tucker was in a show that he did called The Thick of It, and that Armando Iannucci created. And he was a character that was a master of insults, but I would talk to the writers about that character that they did, and it comes off so much ad lib, like it seems like it's just coming off the top of his head, but it's those writers, man. it's just like the insults that they would give for him to say. It's like they're just a wealth of insult knowledge. Gosh, the stuff that rolled off his tongue was just horrible, horrible. I'm wanting one of these days for House of Cards and Veep to do some kind of crossover. That's my dream. We should get Malcolm Tucker in, and then we should get Frank Underwood, is that his name? Frank Underwood, and then Selena, and just have a match.
Do you improvise? Is there much improv that ends up staying in?
The process is something like I've never experienced in television, where they rehearse for 2 or 3 weeks before we shoot. And I've never had that in my TV career. And we take about 5 scripts and we workshop them for 2 weeks. And it's mainly just to kind of find the chemistry, to kind of see if bits work, to see if it's fluid. And that alone is such a gift for an actor. And it's just like this playground that we're able to play in for 2 or 3 weeks before we start shooting, just to see if it works. So that's when we can improv and kind of come up with fun material.
So it looks like you have a good chemistry with the cast does. Yeah,
and we do, and we all get along. That's because, I mean, the other show is on Arrested Development. It was the same thing. Like it was an environment that it was just kind of one big playground. And the great thing when you're dealing with comedy and kind of creativity, these kind of, in Hollywood, I'm sure you've heard there's some egos and, entitlement issues or whatever, but that just sucks creative energy out of a room. And on Veep, I'm so thankful that there's none of that. And everybody is it's a real team player mindset. And it starts with the top. And Julia and Armando are just incredibly gracious, and all they want to do is just make the best show possible. And they just are so open to whatever ideas you have. So that's really fantastic.
Hi.
Hi, what's your name?
Karishma.
Hi.
I'm a really big Veep fan, and I thought what you did when Julia won her Emmy was so cool.
Oh, yeah.
I want to know how you decided to do that and when you decided to.
What was your name again, sorry? Krishna? Krishma. It's what she's talking about is at the Emmys, Julia called me the morning of the Emmys and said, hey, if I win, I want you to carry my purse. And of course, there's that moment of where you're like, oh God, because of course it's Julie Louis-Dreyfus, so you say yes, because she's fantastic and brilliant. But in the back of your head, you're like, this could bomb disastrously. But it was, then they called her name and she won, and we kind of went for it. And it was so fun. And the thing is, what was fun about it was she that morning called me and said, hey, so you can kind of whisper things in my ear, and I was able to whisper in her ear, like, thank your parents, tell them you love them very much. And so it was, and I hope it worked, but there's one of the, like, you're doing a live bit on national television, you're like, oh my God, this could bomb. But hopefully it worked.
It worked.
Thank you.
You came in here kind of dancing, and it's a shame that you don't have a chicken dance on Arrested Development. Do you have one that you would do?
This is the reason Buster does not have a chicken dance, is because he has too much respect for chickens. He's not going to play that game. He feels for them. They're his people. He's not going to do it. Not going to do it.
Hey, Tony, thanks for coming. I'm Mauricio.
Oh, Mauricio?
Mauricio, yeah. So we saw Kathy and Jimmy in the first clip. Was wondering if any other fun, awesome guest stars were coming this season.
Yeah, Kathy came on, and she plays Mike's girlfriend and new wife. Who else did we have? This is touching on my memory issues, which are horrible. We actually just bring a lot of people back from previous seasons. Dan Bacadal, who is on that show Legit. Actually, a lot of people Armando brings back from his movie In the Loop, and some people from The Thick of It. But I'm trying to think who else came on. I know I'm going to leave tonight and realize that Zach Woods is back, who's on that new show Silicon Valley. But a lot of great people.
Hi,
hey,
I'm Jarrell. I'm a really
Jarrell.
big fan of Veep. If you could be on any other HBO show, which one would you envision yourself on?
Good one. I'm in the middle of... this is such a contrast. But I'm in the middle of watching True Detective. Good God, that's terrifying. I don't want to be on that show. No, I'd be on it. It would scare the crap out of me. I'm trying to think, an HBO show. I will say all the guys that are on Silicon Valley, I love, like Kumal and Zach, TJ Miller, all those guys. I'd love to work with them again, so it would be fun to play with them again. I've really heard it's fantastic too.
Hi there, my name is Yvonne.
Hey, how's it going?
That's fantastic, thank you very much.
Good.
Thanks for coming out.
Oh, thank you.
My question is about the difference between writing for a series that's on Netflix and a series that's on something like HBO, and how you think it affects it, having fans being able to watch all the episodes in one go versus having to wait week to week, and how that kind of affects the process.
Good question. When Mitch was deciding to do Arrested Development on Netflix, it was a real risk that he took, but I think it was such a perfect format because the way that the shows were laid out is it was this kind of big matrix that you kind of had to watch. You had to watch one for the other to make sense, and then you had to go back, and it was like it was done. For those of you who haven't seen it, it was as though Tim and I were having a conversation in one scene, and then in his episode, we would separate. And in his episode, you'd see where he went, and in my episode, you'd see where I went. And it was just all this really big puzzle. And so Netflix was a perfect format for that because you were able to hop around and kind of see where the puzzle was fitting in. I personally am not a binge watcher. Like, for instance, for me to binge watch True Detective, I might as well just take a depressant because that's just terrifying and scares the crap out of me. So I need time between to like process and absorb and then get ready for the next one. And House of Cards, my gosh, that show's intense. So I'm not a binge watcher. I like to have time in between. But I think for those that are, they just love to consume. So, I mean, I think it's what Netflix is doing, and even HBO, with HBO Go, they've got all the episodes there to watch. It's perfect for some people. But I still like time in between to kind of take a break. That House of Cards, man, good night. Frank Underwood scares the crap out of me. And Robin Wright Penn, I mean, just this icy, terrifying presence. I swear if I ever meet her, I'm just going to start crying.
I think you're getting into character here a little bit.
I know, exactly.
I like that.
I'm dying, though, on House of Cards just to have Gary run with his bag across the hall. Just like, ooh. And then Frank Underwood just takes his hand out and just goes, pop! All right.
Any other fantasies you want to share with us? Or because that's a good one. That's a good one.
It's like Gary comes from one side and Buster comes from the other. And then Frank Underwood just pops them both.
Hey, thank you all for coming out. This will be up shortly. It'll be up shortly on iTunes. Veep Season 2 is up on iTunes now. Season 3 starts on HBO Sunday night at 10:30, so be sure to watch that and tweet and tell your friends. And also let them know about the Apple Store and these fun events. Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody, for coming. We really appreciate that. Thank you all.
Thanks for having me.
And please welcome this evening's guest moderator, Tim Washer, and tonight's guest, Tony Hale.
All right, thank you.
Hello. Hi, all. Thank you for... Oh, I already have water. Thank you for coming out on this rainy Friday night. I know there's much fancier New York dance clubs out there that you'd rather be at on a Friday night. But thank you.
Would you dance? You want to dance some more for us? We're going to take requests. We'll do 2 questions, and then Cody's going to dance. So just let us know your favorite show tunes. Write those down and pass them up front.
What if this entire night I just danced? Wouldn't that be amazing?
I think. Are we going to see a lot of you dancing in Season 3?
No, I wish. Actually, in that first episode, because that was a wedding I was at in that first episode, and Gary does a little dancing. Yeah. But that was, obviously I'm at a wedding, and Selena is calling me, and you can just see his 2 years, and they serve their politician, do everything, and then they move on to other stuff. I have continued on into my 40s, just because I don't know any other identity outside of Selena Meyer. And it's like they're crazy circumstances. And if you just kind of live in that awkward tension and you don't have to do anything. The writers just give you these crazy circumstances, and that to me is kind of fun and just funny.
All right, well speaking of staying where you are, there's an opportunity in Season 3 where a promotion may come up for you. Can we run that? There's a clip. Could we run the clip where there's a...
Oh, is this the one... when I'm on my bed?
The POTUS Body Man clip? Yeah, at the bed.
So sad. The thing is that, like, he this next season, well, first of all, she's on the campaign trail. So she's on the campaign trail to become codependency that he can't even give scripture without breaking away to her.
So codependency, that seems to be a recurring theme in a lot of your characters, would you say? Or certainly
Yes.
awkwardness.
Yes.
And I don't think we've seen any characters like the ones you play on TV or literature.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Buster, it's Buster and Gary he pretty much, for those of you who haven't watched Veep, Julie Louis-Dreyfus plays the vice president, and I kind of play her what's called a body man, which means I carry around a very large bag of everything that she needs, and I pretty much worship the ground she walks on. And in my eyes, I would just rather be married to her, and she probably doesn't even know my last name. So it's a very codependent relationship, and that tends to be crazy circumstances, like Tim Conway on the Carol Burnett Show, and I felt like they never pushed the comedy. They just kind of trusted the circumstances that they were in. So if, like for instance, in Veep and just kind of the chaos of that environment, but Tim Conway had all these nutty characters, but they knew their circumstances were wild, and therefore if they just sat in that tension and just kind of lived there honestly, it was hilarious. So they never felt the need to push. So I looked at these characters that I've done, and the other character on Arrested, I played Buster on Arrested, and my hand's bitten off by a seal, and I'm dating Liza Minnelli. And on this show, it's like I've been with Selena Meyer for 15 years. I'm in a job actually as Gary. I started in my 20s, and typically people in this body man job, they're in it for theme in a lot of my work.
So how do you get into character? And I guess more importantly, how do you get out of character when it's time to leave?
How do I how do I get into character? Well, let me think. Kind of like how do I form characters and stuff like that?
Yeah, the process. And if you get one pass tonight on a question, so choose wisely.
Thank you. Crap. Characters that I've done. I will say, two huge comic inspirations for me were. We're just diving in right now, aren't we?
Yeah, let's get into it.
Two huge comic inspirations for me are Tim Conway and Bob Newhart. And for those of you guys who are in my age, you'll know them. But one thing that I always loved about those two guys is they were given these